Our first presenter this evening is CARLA, and CARLA GILL is actually the founder and a former managing director of Play Action International in Uganda. And tonight CARLA's joining us from the UK, and she's going to be presenting on some work that has been undertaken by the Play Action International in Uganda around their play spaces. So I will hand over to CARLA, and thank you, CARLA, for joining us. And look, CARLA, we're all on. Even though you're in lockdown, you know that we're all still sitting here together.
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, over to you, CARLA.
Fantastic. Let me share my screen. I'll do the classic. Can you all see that? Yep, there's lots of nods.
Yeah.
Great. So thank you very much for having me on this morning, this evening, this afternoon, whatever time it is for you. I'll be presenting, like it says, playgrounds about increasing access to education in the refugee settlements. So first of all, I should probably introduce myself. So as Robin said, I'm CARLA. I'm one of the founders of Play Action International. Prior to being Play Action International, we were East African Playgrounds. So you may have heard our former name. We recently changed over the summer to Play Action International to kind of show our huge reach and our big goal. So the organisation was founded based on, like I'm sure many of your organisations, the motivation of the importance of play. Like everywhere in the world, everybody plays. But what we really saw was there was sort of a lack of infrastructure around play. There was a lot of energy and excitement about play and acknowledgement of the importance of play, but putting that into action and making sure children really are put first and their play needs are recognised was where the organisation came from. So Play Action International provides play opportunities across East Africa. We mainly work in Uganda, but we also work in Kenya and Tanzania as well. And it all started with playgrounds and developed into training programs and so much more as well. But our playgrounds are really tailor-made to the community. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. We really look at the community that are there and look at how we can design a playground around the needs of those children and young people. So as we were working in Uganda, there was a huge influx of refugees a few years ago from South Sudan, and Uganda has now become one of the largest hosts to refugees in the world. It's the third largest. And so as we were working in Uganda, we saw this huge need, this huge influx of people that were coming into Uganda. And, you know, obviously as a refugee, there's a lot going on. And play, as we will all recognise, is such a key part to dealing with that trauma, that understanding and figuring out what is going on. So just to give you some background about the refugee settlements in Uganda, 59% of refugees in Uganda are under 18 years old and 16% are under 5 years old. So it's a huge population, a huge young population there. Many of the children arrive alone and traumatized. It's not something that you want from your childhood to be taken away from home. So, you know, there's a lot going on for those young people's lives. And typically the amount of years is kind of disputed, which is why I've written on average between 5 and 17 years is how long someone will spend in a refugee settlement. And even if it's that smaller number, 5 years is a long time in a child's life. Now, in the refugee settlements in Uganda, they are dedicated to having child-friendly spaces. Amazing. When we went up to see that, a lot of the time it was a fenced off area. Now, I'm sure you would agree with me that just a bare fenced off area doesn't feel very friendly. It feels like a pen for children to be put, and it feels like the children are not welcome elsewhere. So when we saw this, there was a lot of work that that went into this, and lots of discussions with UNICEF, Save the Children, and DFID, which is UK Aid, around how we can support these young children to access play through a time that's really, really quite traumatic and quite difficult. So often, as I'm sure we're all aware, education is often the key focus. Education is vital. We all need an education. But what is often really forgotten is that children can't learn until their basic needs are met. You know, if the children have suffered trauma, they're feeling insecure, maybe they're working to provide for their family, maybe they've come to the refugee settlement and there's no, people aren't sharing the same language, because language changes a lot. And, you know, people are coming from lots and lots of different places. So these children are arriving with such a lot of complex, different needs and things going on in their little minds, that it's not quite as simple for the children to arrive, to register, to enrol at nursery or at school, and then sit down and learn. That magic doesn't just happen that way. There's a lot more that needs to happen to enable that. And I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but you know, when we think about our children, if they've grown up in a safe, secure home, even their journey to attending nursery or attending school is a long and complicated one. There's lots of conversations, there's lots of, you know, getting used to, maybe visit days. So when the focus is about increasing education in refugee settlements, we really felt that there's a step missing here. there's a whole piece of childhood that is missing. You can't just jump to education. So our focus, as is all of our focus, is on play. And I believe really, really strongly that play is a child's language. Play is how children understand the world, it's how they make sense of the world. It's how they build their vital foundations. And especially for these children that have come from complex entities, fleeing a home, no matter how safe and secure that home was beforehand, is traumatic. There's a whole heap of things to unpack and to understand in those young minds. And play really provides that foundation, enabling them to build their trust and safety and open the doors to opportunities. Learning cannot happen until a child feels safe. So, as I say, when you focus on play, anything is possible. And this is where this programme came along. So we were working in the refugee settlements, and we were looking at our programmes and how we can integrate our programmes into the refugee settlements to support both children's right to play, to enable them to play, but also to be able to support them moving on into their education. So we developed these playgrounds that are tailor-made to the communities, and to encourage children to just come to the centre, just come along and play. Don't sit down and learn. Don't, you know, you don't need to enrol right now, but just become familiar. Start to engage with other children. As I say, in the refugee settlements, when we started working, there was a huge influx of South Sudanese population. However, Uganda is populated by refugees from all the neighbouring countries effectively, and more, which means there's language barriers, there's cultural barriers, there's all sorts of different things that, as we all know, play is a great it's a great equalizer for everyone to really understand and come together. And it's a place to feel at home and feel safe and secure, which is really the base level that you want to get to enable a child to take those next steps and make those steps in their lives, those choices for their next steps. So what did we do? So we, as I say, we worked with the, they're called ECD centres, Early Childhood Development Centres. So we worked with them to create child-centred playgrounds. And as I say, they're not one size fits all. They really are working in consultation with the communities, and understanding maybe they want to put a little mini shop, a little play shop. Well, what is normally sold in a shop at their home, and maybe they come from somewhere close to the river, so maybe we want to put something like a boat or some fishing. So we sort of really try to reflect the child's experiences and bring part of their culture and part of where they're from into a collaborative space in order for them to play, feel at home, engage in other children's cultures and understandings, and have a reflection of that within their play setting. We also worked with the early childhood development caregivers, which is the staff at the centre, to develop play theory with them. So as we all know, early childhood is really we learn through play. So we worked with the staff and the caregivers there to really show and help build using the playground into their teaching. So it wasn't about sitting in the classroom learning your 1, 2, 3s and ABCs. It's about coming together and acknowledging that play is learning, and how the staff can enable learning through play at this young and really sort of vital age. And through COVID as well, we then integrated our programs to develop hand washing and to develop the understanding of COVID, all through a play setting. And this all came about because we acknowledged a space that was for children and that highlighted the importance of children, as opposed to before we were at the refugee settlements, where it was a fenced off mud field, which great for playing football in, but not particularly inspiring or engaging or inviting to be part of the whole community. Whereas what we've managed to develop in the refugee settlements is a space where children can feel really safe and secure. There's no fences, there's no boundaries. They can leave, they can come, and they are safe and secure in that place. So as an organisation so far, we've reached over half a million children with a safe place to play, heal, learn and develop. We've partnered with 325 communities, built 377 playgrounds and supported 250,000 children in the refugee settlement have access to play. So the programme has really expanded and grown with the need and the demand from the refugee settlements. Like I said, about play being so vital, especially and even more so to children that have suffered trauma and are trying to settle and make sense of their world. So from the approach, we received funding from DFID, from UK Aid, and also from UNICEF to implement this programme. So along with it came a lot of monitoring and evaluation, and lots of stats and understanding of how this project that we'd already started to run has happened. So in comparison to other early childhood development centres that don't have a play focus, we've seen, compared to the ones where we've worked and we've injected a play focus, we've seen a 20% increase in enrolment. Now this is huge, especially as, you know, as I say, many of those children and many of the families are maybe not sure about the value of early childhood development. They're not sure of the value of nursery and preschool. Maybe they didn't have that where they were before. So this is a real significant trust element that we're seeing, that the children and families are really valuing what is being provided there. We've seen that 71% of ECD centres saw an increase in children's social skills, and they put that hugely down to the fact that children can play together and come together in that amazing way. And 57% of the ECD centres saw an increase in children's physical skills through the play centre. So just to put this into context, I'm going to read you just a little story of the impact that we have had. And this is a story of Peter. And when we first met Peter, he was always on his guard. He carried a sharpened stick around with him for protection and did not interact with other children at all. We started to take him to the playground regularly, and over time he started to play. He would go down the slide or play on the swings, but always with his stick. Over the course of a few weeks, he started to put his stick down more and more often, and eventually left it behind completely. But the most incredible surprise was the day that he started bringing his sister, Grace, to the playground with him. He introduced her to other children and spent the whole day laughing and smiling. The two of them are amongst the last to leave the playground each day now. Seeing that transformation in Peter was incredible. He has his childhood back. And that is the power of play, of what that can produce. So that's the summary of my presentation, and the takeaway, which I know we are all in agreement with anyway, but is to start with play. Many times when programs are put together by adults for children, we start with a different outcome. But if we start with play, then we start with the children's language, and we start on the level and the understanding of what children want and what they need, and then we can achieve such a lot for those young people and children. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you. That message, start with play, it really hits home. That you made a comment, children can't learn until their basic needs are met. And it's something I know we all truly believe. But that experience, you actually show it through what you're doing in Uganda. And it's also quite interesting because it has application across the world. I'm aware that at the moment in the UK, there is actually a current debate around that extension of school and the idea of that leading advocates and child development specialists are calling for a summer of play in order for children to actually recover. And I think, say if they only need to look at examples from refugee camps of how important play is to know that it's going to apply across the world for any children who have experienced that.
Yeah, exactly. And if we just dive into sitting children in a classroom expecting them to learn, that's not going to happen. We all know as adults, if we've had a bad night's sleep, if we've had an argument with a partner, if we're feeling a bit grumpy, we haven't eaten right, then we're not going to have a good day at work. So why do we expect children to be able to sit down and learn in a classroom before their basic needs are met?
Yeah, so the work that you have done in Uganda actually has some application to that argument that we are going to have to put forward across the world. So thank you, Carla. We'll come back to you for more discussion after we have our colleagues from Japan present. And our colleagues from Japan are Naoko and Miyuki and Mitsunari are joining us from the Adventure Playground Network of Shiba. And it's a parent action really that's taken place here. And I'm going to hand over to Miyuki, who I think is going to go first. Is that right, Miyuki?
Yes.
To present first? Yes. Yeah. So welcome.
Yes, and share the presentation.
And this is the lovely picture you might have seen in the promotions of that lovely little boy carrying the rock. It's one of my favourites. So thank you for sharing that with us, Miyuki.
Yes.
I will hand over to you. And if you want to play from start with your presentation.
Thank you. And thank you for this chance to presentation from Japan. And I would like to talk about movement in Japan. And I am Miyuki Furukawa, and director of the Adventure Playground Network of Chiba Prefecture in Japan. I'm not good at English, so show many pictures, sorry. And I introduce 3 points. First is introduction and background. Second is take action, weaving a safety net by ourselves. And third, reflection and next action plan. Do you know Chiba Prefecture? Chiba Prefecture is the center of Japan and next to Tokyo. And the Narita International Airport is famous as the entrance of Japan. And the Chiba Prefecture, the APNC is the Adventure Playground Network in Chiba, a citizen-driven organization and decided to support Adventure Playground organization in the Chiba. In 2020, 37 playgrounds in here. Our project is two gathering in a month to share knowledge and paid training seminar for play workers. So this is why we could act rapidly and feeling strong against these difficulties. And April is the start of a semester of school, but this April the pandemic is began. And so closing school was the first things ever to happen. The watched word was stay at home. All the children suddenly lost a place to go to the play freely. So we do take action. Action 1 is hear children's voice. Second is ie play. Ie means my room, my house. And so play workers make a movie for play at home. And action 3 is open the playground. And action 1 is children's voice around Chiba. We hear the voice of children's. And so we get 3 shocking findings. First is 10% children stay at home by themselves. And second, more addicted to screen. They do the movies or games in their house. And 3, got stress and fear and easy to get irritated. And 389 voices from 19 cities in Chiba, only 1 week. And also children's voice around Chiba, we get the word and play, friends, school, worries, and stressed, no exercise. And action 2, play workers make YouTube channels. And they play, usually play in playground, and the children watch the movie, YouTube, and they do in their house. And also, the children felt familiar with play workers to see the faces, and reflection spread to all over Chiba Prefecture. And action 3, open the adventure playground. And case is Yotsukaido. Yotsukaido is also center of Chiba Prefecture and many mountains and rivers and so many natures. And so can you hear smiles? And children do so many plays in a playground. And this is number of play park days and a number of participants. Small, yes, and discuss with the city for the events. And also infection disease prevention is also easy to understand with illustration and humor. We use illustration like this and make sure and distance. And also we do the humor in like this. Be careful with fresh paint, and so we cannot sit closer. And this picture is junior high school students. Yes, make the event because the school event is canceled. And so the junior high school student and elementary school student plan to events like Olympic. in autumn. Yes, so change to Naoko. Okay. Could you change Naoko?
なおこさん、ミュートになってます。
Okay, thank you, Ms. Furukawa, and hi to the audiences. First of all, I'd like to thank to the IPA world giving us such a wonderful opportunity. Thank you very much. My first name is Naoko, representing Tomisato Fukuro Play Park. Fukuro means an owl, as you can see the mascot here. I started this playground activity since 2014, motivated by the importance of play, same as CARLA. There are 6 staff members now to support the activities. We are all local residents, age over 40s. The next, please. Thank you. Even though the pandemic, we kept opening the playground because we knew many mothers was confused of the situation and finding a place to play, not care for eyes of the others. And our playground is just a perfect place for them. Next, please. Tomisato Fukuro Play Park, located near Shirahata Shrine. A private land used to be an abandoned rice field. That's the advantage. We could open playground in our own responsibility. As you can imagine, our mainly work is mowing the lawn and Japanese pampas grass. Next, please. During the pandemic, we had to wear a risk of infection of elder staff and their family. So I'm the only staff working now. But you don't have to worry. Our motto is, do what you can. And no money, but use your hands, head, and heart. Sounds like 4-H club, you know? And this motto works for children's play too. They never get bored at the playground, as you can see the pictures. Next, please. Playground activities ease their tension and anxiety. Many teenagers come to be released and concentrate in their interests. The same thing happens to the caregivers too. Next, please. Thank you. Next, please.
Okay.
Yes, okay. 次どうぞ。あ、一つ前にお願いします。You can see what's the difference is. Before the pandemic, cooking and sharing food outside was one of our most popular activities. But now we have to put on a mask and no food. Sorry for me and them too. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. And second, I told you reflection and next action plan. And reflection, APNC and Chiba network worked, conduct questionnaires to hear children's voice. And second, the analysis shows us the crisis of children's play right. And third, came to decision to open playground during a pandemic. ensure each member's safety following the safety measure guidance, and creating the feeling to togetherness and feeling happy give up people strength through play. And next, action plan. Our network, expand our play safety network. And second, ensure that both outdoor and indoor playgrounds are available. And third, flexible operation based on guidance of local government. And also participants, children, and galleries have to get used to new normal. And we plan to this plan next action. And thank you for very much for listening. And special thanks, Mr. Terada and Mrs. Marila. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Miyuko. I was just looking at what is happening for you. You have 37 playgrounds in Chiba. And are they all, when you talk about the staff, like Naoko, is that volunteer or, you know, it's done by volunteers? You do it in your free time, or how are they staffed?
Oh, we are all volunteers.
All volunteers?
Yes, not paid.
You are the second group we've had on in our webinar series of volunteers who are promoting play, and I've referred to them before as our play heroes. But you are also our play heroes.
Thank you.
Pauline, you have a question. Pauline Martin, you've got your hand up. Oh, okay, maybe not. Okay, I will bring everybody on, our CARLA and our team from Japan. And I'm just checking our conversations. So you will see from our chats that there is links being given. Thank you, Mitsunari, for doing that. Links to the work that they have been doing, and so that people can have access to that. I suppose one of the questions I do have for both you, CARLA, and the team from Shiba is, like CARLA, you partnered with 325 communities to build those playgrounds. I'm just thinking we've got to bring CARLA up on the screen. Got to find you, CARLA, and bring you into the screen if we just spotlight you. CARLA, you work with 325 communities, and I was wondering if there were elements or what makes a successful partnership with a community when you're working to build those sorts of play spaces.
Well, I think a great partnership comes from a mutual want and a mutual benefit, and an amazing partnership, as in we don't go to communities and say, hey, we're going to build you a playground, because maybe that's not what they need and what they want at that time. So the best partnerships come from when communities come to us, they've heard of our work and said, we really need this and we really want this within our community. We're already doing this. We've already got, there's play advocates all across the world. Whether they know that they're play advocates or not is a whole nother matter. But there's so many people championing the need and the want and the importance of play. And so the best partnerships come from where that seed is already there, and we just come in and enable them to be able to grow and expand on what is already amazing work that's already happening. So I see that our work is facilitating that amazing need, want, and desire to enable everyone to play.
And would you say with the adventure playgrounds in Japan, was there any elements that make the partnership so successful with getting those established? How do you get people involved and committed to want to come and volunteer in the playgrounds?
Oh, that's one of the difficulty we have, because as volunteer and it's difficult to let them know how play is important for the children. As same as CARLA says, the adult people thought that studying is the first thing to do for children, not playing. So we have to let them know play is learning for children, and the language of children is playing. I agree totally with CARLA says. So that's a very hard thing to change the minds of the adult people. Yeah.
And I saw that the fact that you have that questionnaire that you did for families and for children and included children's voices, it meant that you had an evidence to support you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful argument, you know, when you can get evidence before you're doing some project, some evidence to support why you do it. Mitsunari is joining us. Mitsunari is also from the Shiba area for the adventure playgrounds. Did you want to say anything more, Mitsunari, about getting parents and collaborators and volunteers to help you with the playgrounds?
Well, so this time, these two adventure playgrounds successfully opened the adventure playground, but some of the area could not open because it's too close to the central Tokyo. So I can say, yes, it depends on the, how to say, city office, and if they cannot show the safety regulation measures, any citizens organization could not hold any activities. So it was difficult time, but now it's getting better and more of adventure playgrounds are open.
So you had to go to government or to the local office in that area, to the government officials, to try and get them to let you open up those playgrounds?
I think so, or to see the website of their policies. And I already, in addition to this, I put some information about Japanese national survey of children's play under COVID-19, and it's reported that more of a child is, how to say, play video games more and more.
Yes.
And this survey is strongly supporting to children to play outdoor. Yeah.
And we have had, Angela's just asked, Mitsunari, you might be able to help with this, if it's possible to get the link to the Play at Home YouTube work that was done.
Okay.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to hear a little bit more about how you organised that Play at Home YouTube. Did you rehearse it, or was it just impromptu? You know, did you just do it on the day?
みゆきさん、YouTube リハーサルしたりしたのかって、それとももうその日に突然やったのかって言って。
Yes, and play workers rehearsal 1 or 2 times, and so this it is very 会話がアドリブが良かったってなんて言うんですか高木さん。
アドリブってなんていうの三成さん help アドリブってなんだIt was, but the happening was more fun to the watchers.
Yes, yes.
So,
Yes.
like that. でしょ
And so you were able to keep the connection between the children and the workers whilst they were in lockdown.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of a number of countries who have used YouTube or those movies to do exactly that. In Australia at the moment, we have an adventure playground called the Venny. And I know they were actually doing some connection online so that they were able to keep doing activities. And next week, we're actually hearing from a number of projects. And Marini is on tonight, who have been doing some of that online type of connection. So to keep the connections going. It's an interesting new way of trying to connect with children through play online that we might never have thought about before. In regards to that cultural appropriateness, Carla, you talked about that reflecting the culture in the settings. And it was interesting because I don't know how other people feel, but you often forget that, that you sort of take for granted that wherever the play occurs is their culture. But in a refugee setting, they are displaced. So did you want to talk a little bit more about how you went about deciding, what parts of culture come back into that environment and how you got that feedback of what to do?
Yeah, it was really interesting actually, because when I work outside of the refugee settlements, we have a whole process of how we engage the community and how we engage children to give us the information in order to inform the design. So normally we would, if they were at a school and we were looking at their play setting in their community, we would say, okay, well, how do you play already in this setting? Where do you, where is your sort of active play? Where's your quiet play? What do you do? What do your, what's important to your society? And we'd ask the parents as well of like, what do you want for your children? What's important? What are the values in your community that you want represented? So that's the way we'd always worked, and the playgrounds really reflected those communities. Like I said, maybe if they're a community where there's lots of farming going on, we would reflect that within the play setting. But as you say, go to a refugee settlement, children are displaced, and they're displaced from such a broad spectrum of places. And so we really had to work very hard to adapt our processes to really listen and to understand. And in some settings, we were setting up these play areas when there was limited, we knew the children were coming. They were sort of, for want of a better word, being processed through registration systems to come into the refugee settlements, but they might not have necessarily been there just yet. So we really had to look and be reflective of what the rest of the refugee settlement looks like. We had to really look and understand where people were coming from in order to build this collaborative approach. And so it was a lot more challenging to be reflective in that setting, and with language barriers, etc. But what we worked a lot with was the people that were already there, and understanding what their core values were, and really what the need of a child who's been displaced is. And that really reflected it, because if we tried to put a shop, a little marketplace that reflected every child that might come to that centre, we could end up of building 200 plus shops that all looked completely different. So that wasn't the way to go about it, but really sort of understanding what the needs of the children were. And then we trained up the caregivers within the community, and then those playgrounds can adapt to the children and be reflective of the children that are that are at the centre then. So the playground can adapt essentially.
I'm not sure if that's answered a question Kathy's asked. Kathy, you can let us know if, you know, like you've asked CARLA about, is there a standard process that you're using to engage the children and hear their voices? You've sort of touched upon that, CARLA. Is there something you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I think we have created sort of standard processes in order to ensure, because we work in, you know, large numbers of communities, we want to make sure that the process makes sense. So yes, there is a standard process, which means the outcome is always different, which is the exciting bit. So no playground ever really looks the same. You probably could tell it was one of our playgrounds by the colours and things we used, but no two playgrounds look the same.
Always a good thing when there's no two playgrounds look the same.
Yeah. That's the fun bit.
Yeah, we call that in Australia the cookie cutter model, that everything looks the same, everything looks the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just interesting, I just touch back, Kerry online has just reminded us that she's got a colleague in Chile who's been doing recess at home programs during the lockdown, that same process of engaging through the internet. And Pat's just sharing with us the fact that they've written a Playday handbook, and you can actually get from their website if you're interested. So just when I'm thinking about that idea of you know, engaging with kids' voices and looking at sort of the issue around displacement, I suppose there is that question that comes to mind with regard to the training that you talked about, CARLA, and would probably be once again for the teams in Japan with volunteers. What sort of training are you accessing? Is there, you know, what are the challenges for you in getting that training, and is there anything that you would do, you know, that you're doing now that you would like to share with us about training people?
Oh.
Yeah. Now
What's up?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Our network has a paid training, and we train we train about なんていうんだ、実際。Sorry, my poor English.
No, that's okay. Your English is very good. Because can I tell you, Naoko,
Yeah.
your English is far superior to any of our Japanese. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you have got very good English. We would not be able to speak Japanese as well.
Yeah. 発達のこととかって、なんて言ったらいいのかな、英語で。市狩さんわかる？
Development. So I know that they are doing seminar about the risk management for play. Yeah. And also they are supporting children's development theories. Mental development theories. Yeah. But I don't know whether they are doing some seminar about COVID-19.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we are training about children physically and mentally grow ups.
Yes.
Yeah, and how to do rope walks, or how to avoid the risk management. Risk management of the playground, and etc. Things like that.
Thank CARLA, have you frozen?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I thought Robin.
Has everybody frozen?
Can you hear me now? Classic phrase. Am I back? No? Can you hear me? Oh, we're good. Okay. The classic phrase on Zoom. Can you hear me? Yes, training. So training is something that we're really looking at continuing to develop because gosh, there's such a lot to be able to do. But our core focus within the refugee settlements has been around play within education, because a lot of the time, you know, we find that, you know, we want to deliver play programs, but then sort of funding and, you know, we're pushed from the other side of like, oh, but education, what about this, what about that? So we found a really harmonious way of moving forward with play is to say, well, actually, if we play, then your educational attainment will increase, will do better. So we've done a lot of training around play within education, so play-based teaching, so engaging primary school teachers, early years teachers, and saying, you know, a lot of the teaching in Uganda is rote, so it's very, you know, the teacher says 1 + 1 is 2, and the children will repeat 1 + 1 is 2, with limited understanding of what actually one and another actually means. So where our training sort of started and focused on was with teachers, and with that understanding of why play is important and why children learn through play, and actually you can get some incredible educational results and your children will love you for enabling them to play through play. So we've done a lot around that, and then we've also done a lot around trauma, and so moving into the refugee settlements with children experiencing different things throughout their childhood. We've been talking and working a lot with the refugee caregivers who sort of work across the refugee settlements, a little bit like social workers, around, you know, why, you know, the playground is an amazing setting and an amazing space to hang out as a social worker, effectively, to be able to engage with the child and understand, you know, if there is something going on in their life, and have an adult, a safe adult that's there to be able to talk to them. So we've done a lot of training around safeguarding and trauma with the use of play. So really we've used play as like the foundation for everything that can be achieved, but there's a huge amount more that we want to develop. It's quite a big focus for us in the future is training. Oh, Robin, I think you're on mute. Another classic phrase.
I came back in, I was muted. One of the questions we have is from Tam, is about, for both of you, growth, future growth. Do you think that there's going to be more playgrounds created in Chiba or in other areas of Japan? And CARLA, are there more plans for expansion in Uganda or even outside of Uganda?
In Chiba, the playgrounds number is increasing. Yes. So I think it's going, yes, it's going and going on, I think so.
Yeah. So in Uganda for Play Action, we're in our 11th year of running, and our vision was within the next 10 years we'll be in 10 countries. So we had a very ambitious mission for the next 10 years, and we've seen huge demand, huge need for these play spaces set up, in particular with the refugee settlements across. And I can see Tam's just said should connect with Project Play, so yes, Tam, thank you. I certainly will get onto that, but that's our vision. It still is our vision, but we have also I think it's important to say we have been exceptionally hit by COVID, and funding has just been an exceptional struggle, and a lot of international development aid is being reduced. You know, cuts are being made all over the place. So yes, we continue to plan to expand, and gosh, the opportunities that are out there are just phenomenal. The need is there, the want is there. We've just got to work on, you know, and I think it's an age-old struggle of all of us, for all of us, but, you know, getting the funding behind us in order to be able to support the work, the vital work that we need to be able to achieve. So, and
the funding,
ambition.
Yeah, the funding, Carla, that comes from philanthropic groups or other charities or aid agencies?
Yeah, so our funding comes from a multitude of different backgrounds. So UNICEF, Save the Children, we sort of run, we work alongside them, we have contracts with them, and DFID and UK aid, so government funding for international development, but then also we have a whole fundraising entity as well, which part of that was volunteering in Uganda, which obviously has not happened as we are not leaving the UK at the moment. So yeah, so funding is a real challenge at this point in time. So our ambitions are high, but we just got to find the funding to match those ambitions.
I think winning people on board is something we have learned over the course of these webinars, of how people are approaching and advocating for play and convincing people about the importance of play. And that during COVID-19, perhaps more than ever, people are starting to see the impact of what happens when you don't have play, so that people are becoming more aware. But I think the example of that little boy, the story of Peter and carrying the stick, it's those sorts of stories that are so emotive, you know, that actually help people in just one short little story capture the work that's being done. And the pictures and the beautiful photography from Japan of all those wonderful play environments suddenly made me want to say, I'm coming to Japan and I'm just going to play in that playground. I'll be that strange round-eyed woman running around, too big for everything, but enjoying it. It's so, as they once again, it builds that emotion. One of the things that we did in IPA World a few years ago is Teresa Casey, who was president at the time, and I had the rare privilege to be able to, we self-funded to go into Lebanon, to the Bekaa Valley, and we actually spent some time with Beyond Foundation, who was working with children who were refugee. And that idea of Peter and his stick was very similar to what resonated with me. We had some children who would never take their little blue backpacks off. And we were told if they're wearing their backpacks, they're probably still traumatized. They won't remove their backpacks in any of the sort of programs being run until they're feeling really comfortable. And that idea of displacement and loss is just, you know.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think, as I say, I think we all know, I'm absolutely preaching to the converted, but that play is how children come to terms with things and feel safe and secure again, which is so vital. And
those two words that captured were safety and joy, you said. There was on the slide, safety and joy. And I thought, you know, we don't use the word joy as often as we should, but, you know, isn't it, you know, through play and through the playgrounds you've formed, that idea for all of the children, and in Chiba as well, that idea of a safe place and the joy that it brings. So, you know, so those two words have stuck with me this evening. And certainly some final words, and I will probably quote from Marguerite from Play Scotland, who had said that strength and togetherness through play is really the key message of 2021. And certainly it's a key message for us with IPA World as we join together for these webinars, of, you know, that idea of the strength, the resilience of people coming together and not being defeated and thinking we just can't play. You've found ways to do it. And so it's you know, you are the play heroes. So thank you for not giving up. Thank you for not thinking it's too hard and continuing on to promote play for children in your community.